why does it not have a maximum supply? Because I know that a lot of people usually get the idea that fiat currencies, in certain cases, they don't have a cap on their supply. So why are crypto tokens following in the same path? I think the key issue here is if you're going to use the native or the utility currency of a specific network, you don't want to run in the situation where there is a competition in order to earn the token when the token itself is quite critical and useful to access the ecosystem. You don't want to create this kind of supply and demand imbalance.
So let's start off with a quick market update. Bitcoin at the moment just short of 60K. August was quite an eventful month, actually. A lot has been happening. It all started, obviously, beginning of August, we did have a bigger pullback in the Bitcoin price, but also in the broader market, for instance, in equities. The reason being was that Japan hiked their interest rates by 25 bips. We also saw a massive unwind of the yen carry trade. And at the same time, we had some bad job reports that sparked some fears of a potential US recession. However, in the meantime, throughout August, we did get some more macro data that came out better than expected. For instance, we had the CPI that came lower at 2.9 versus 3%. We had the PPI, jobless claims, and retail sales that they came in nicely. However, just looking at the price, we did see equities and the S&P 500, for instance, recover quickly and perform better, while Bitcoin seemed to be lagging behind a little bit. The reason being for that is definitely that we did see a lot of selling pressure when it comes to Bitcoin. As you might know, we had Mt. Gox, we had the German government, we had Genesis, we had Bitcoin miners that all put a lot of selling pressure on the market. In aggregate, we did see over between 10 to 15 billion in Bitcoin that came to the market, and therefore the Bitcoin price didn't react accordingly. However, this selling pressure is winding down, which is absolutely good news. And in the back of that, we have a lot of positive tailwind when it comes to macro data. We had Jerome Powell speak at Jackson Hole. He announced that the time has come to start cutting down rates. And obviously, risk on assets favor a rate cut. Maybe if we go to the next slide, we do see that at the moment, we do expect at least 25 basis points or 25 basis points of a rate cut. The market still hasn't decided whether it be 25 or 50, but overall, obviously, it will favor risk on assets, and in that sense, also Bitcoin. On top of that, there's a lot of news coming out a lot of data and a lot of news coming out over the next 2 weeks. So keep an eye on that. For instance, today we have the Nvidia earnings coming out. This is obviously a big deal. It's a very influential stock. In average, it can move the entire market by almost 10%, which is quite significant. So Nvidia earnings is definitely the top news today. Tomorrow we have unemployment claims, we have the PCE coming out end of this month, and then beginning September, we get some more macro data like the PPI and the CPI. And all of this obviously will lay the ground and set the tone for the Fed meeting on September 18th. So keep an eye on that. If we look more globally, and you might be aware of that, there is a correlation between global money supply and the Bitcoin price. So usually when the money supply increases, we do see a better performance in Bitcoin and risk on assets in general. We did see here money supply consolidating over the last 12 to 18 months. But now with central banks cutting interest rates globally and waiting for the Fed to follow suit, we do expect this to break out. We do expect a liquidity injection and therefore potentially another tailwind for Bitcoin. What you should also look out for, and we pointed this out several times in our research, is stablecoin supply. So stablecoins is interesting because it can be seen as a proxy of liquidity in the crypto space. And usually when we do see stablecoin supply rise, we see a better performance in Bitcoin and other assets. And as you can see here, especially over the last weeks, we've seen a drastic increase in stablecoin supply, which is a clear leading indicator and a potential catalyst for a better performance in crypto assets. We also want to take a look at the long tail. Just looking at the price performance, we clearly see that Bitcoin is performing better than other assets. This is reflected also in the Bitcoin dominance, which has been increasing steadily over the last 12 months. However, what we can see here is a so-called speculation index, which basically shows a bit if the long tail of crypto assets, especially altcoins, if they're under or overvalued relative to Bitcoin. And as we can see here, we are bottoming out, meaning this could potentially be a good entry point also to build an altcoin position, because we could expect a reversal of the speculation index. Usually, as you might know, Bitcoin is clearly leading the rally, while altcoins with a higher beta follow suit. And lastly, just to round up, looking at the historical performance of Bitcoin, we can see here September seems to be a bit more choppy. There's a thing in traditional markets called the September effect, which is that there's a lot of profit taking, potential tax loss harvesting, a lot of rebalancing. And that's why usually in September, traditional markets and Bitcoin are a bit more choppy. However, obviously, we're all looking forward to October, or in crypto, we call it Uptober, because historically and statistically speaking, this is one of the better, if not the best month for Bitcoin. And given all the things that we just said in terms of macro tailwinds, about selling pressure winding down, obviously this overall paints a potential bullish picture for Bitcoin and the entire asset class. Kareem, Max, you want to add anything on this section?
No, I think we've covered grounds in terms of the crypto native factors and in terms of how the economy has been performing. I don't think there's much to add. I'd just like to point out that before we get into the tone section, let's stop the slideshow and put it on again, because we added a few data points at the end. So just to have the most recent. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's why we come.
Yeah. Just one thing I wanted to point out on this as well is, while obviously October is still very valid in this regard, this year we obviously had the halving happen a few months ago in April. And in every year of the halving, Q4 has performed positively for Bitcoin. So I think that's just another potential bullish point for people to be aware of as well.
There's also, to your point as well, Max, the election cycle. The crypto has become a very weighty topic this time around, and versus all the previous 3 cycles. Of course, a Trump victory would, if he does win, it could mean a lot for crypto, considering all the things that he suggested he would do, from having more crypto-friendly regulations to being more a champion of stablecoins, because in terms of how it would support the US economy and how it would strengthen the dollar's dominance. So all of these things would be true catalysts for crypto. And on the other side, even though Kamala hasn't been very clear about what she could do to the industry, like her stance and her position, it seems that she wants to take a bit of a linear stance than the Biden administration, which, even though she is part of, she could obviously still move on and try to take a more of a slightly refined approach. But we still don't know much about what exactly is she suggesting. But the fact that she is apparently or allegedly trying to keep an open conversations with some industry players, this would give us some hope that things could really change after the November election. And just the uncertainty, generally speaking, of the election cycle. Usually there's a lot of excitement leading into it, and then after that we see a stabilization. Disregarding of who is going to win, it's going to be an exciting quarter, that's for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you said, I think it's a net positive for the industry, because it's just gaining more attention. People are speaking about it, and obviously it became an important item of the political movement in the US as well. Good. That being said, we want to keep the market update short because obviously there has been a lot happening when it comes to Telegram and the TON network. And that's why we thought it's a good opportunity to dedicate this call also to give a deeper insight on the recent news, but also looking deeper into the project and the protocol itself, just to grasp what's going on and what it might mean for the future going forward. Maybe let's start what is TON network, just so we get everyone aligned and give a bit of a background on what is TON actually in the first place.
Yeah, gladly. I also think it's best to give an overview before we start diving into the weeds of what happened with Telegram. But just in case anyone here isn't aware, TON, or the Open Network, is a decentralized layer 1 platform. So just like any smart contract platform, your Ethereum, your Solana, your Sui, it's designed to support a global app ecosystem, which enables the seamless deployment of these dApps. On top of that, as we are aware because of the news, the Open Network was initially developed by the Durov brothers of Telegram. That being said, the projects face significant challenges with US regulators, and as a result, in May 2020, Telegram suspended its support for TON, which paved the path for the TON Foundation to take over. So it's important to note that they are separate entities. That being said, Telegram has endorsed TON in September 2023 and saying that the blockchain, and therefore the token, is its official Web3 infrastructure. So what does that really mean? So what that means for TON itself, it means that while they operate entirely independently, it gets unrestricted and untapped access to Telegram's vast user base of 900 million users. And so because of that, TON is uniquely positioned thanks to this relationship it has with Telegram. So firstly, TON benefits from Telegram's familiar, intuitive user interface. It eases the transition for new entrants to go from Web 2 to Web 3, and it really makes the adoption of blockchain technology feel natural, accessible, and basically not technical to them. The close relationships between them, allows a smoother integration of blockchain features within the messaging platform, which allows users to interact with these dApps without leaving an environment that they're accustomed to. And for Telegram, what this means is TON offers the crypto railways that it needs to really unlock its full potential and go from just an encrypted messaging platform into a kind of super app like the crypto WeChat, if you will. But that being said, the most important thing I think about this is the 900 million monthly active users, because this serves as a natural funnel for people to start exploring crypto. And I think another angle here is not only does it help the users be funneled into actually entering the crypto space, but it also has led several developers to start onboarding to TON and start developing on the platform. And some people here might be like, what's the reason for that? It's very simple, and it goes back to supply and demand. And developers build applications and use cases. So they essentially form the supply side of the blockchain, and then users access these apps and therefore create the demand. People use Ethereum, Solana, etc., because they can make swaps, they can borrow assets, they can lend stable coins, mint NFTs, etc. And without these features, nobody would use the chain. So it really all starts with building dApps and the supply side, the developer side. So blockchains need to attract these developers to create useful apps. But the developers, they don't know that people will actually show up to that particular blockchain. But thanks to these 900 million users that Telegram already has, this kind of risk is a thing of the past, and developers can reasonably assume that users will actually start to onboard to the chain if the apps are there. So this has led to a host of different applications being built, predominantly focused on simple mobile gaming, dubbed the Telegram mini apps, but it's also developed quite a substantial DeFi ecosystem. And we're starting to see that influx of activity on chain as well. Ton currently has over or almost 500K daily users, which is 33% more than Ethereum. Of course, we know Ethereum operates in a modular framework, but I think what's interesting to point out here is Base's numbers. They're the leader in the daily active addresses recently. And I think this is really noteworthy because, like Ton, Base leverages an existing user base, this time through Coinbase, but it underscores really the effectiveness of tapping in to an active and existing market. So I just wanted to give this overview of really the benefits of Ton before we go into the troubles it's faced recently.
I think it's just maybe worth also highlighting how they both work very closely and like the sort of integrations they have with each other. So for instance, as Max just said, Telegram now has a native crypto wallet. That means that Telegram users don't need to use a third party in order to buy crypto or send crypto from one account to the other. It's as simple as starting a chat and then sending someone a payment. The fact that you now have USDT, the largest stablecoin, the largest fiat denominated stablecoin, integrated natively within Telegram, you're able to use that. That has unlocked a bunch of novel use cases, like in the Philippines, for instance. People, citizens over there, they can start making social security contributions using USDT via Telegram, which is all settled on Ton. That is something that we really haven't seen the degree of integrating blockchain in the background to that extent before. Another really cool example is ad revenue. So for instance, if you are a channel owner and you want to pay for advertisements, if you pay with Ton natively within the application itself, you have a subsidized discount, which is again very cool because on one side, it's fostering the adoption of Ton as a payment currency, while at the same time, the whole process is being settled on Ton. So it allows for a much efficient and faster settlement experience that we don't really see outside of traditional financial systems.
I think that's a good point. Ton is a good example on how an integration between Web 2 and Web 3. And we said that multiple times in the past, to reach mainstream adoption, we need to abstract away from the complexity of crypto. And I think the Ton network and Ton, they did an amazing job so far. And that's also why it's been increasing so drastically this year. It's up over 150% year to date, because a lot of people recognized that this is the true strength and tapping into those 900 million monthly active users on Telegram and an easy UX UI. Now we understand what Ton is, but what's been happening recently? There's been a lot of news going on. Is it reason to be concerned, or what's going on?
I'll gladly shed some light here. So the Telegram CEO, I think, as many of you have seen in the news, he was arrested on suspicion of the encrypted messaging platform violating EU regulation. Most of the charges or most of the claims are that it's due to a lack of moderation, with Pavel, the CEO, supposedly failing to take steps to curb the criminal use of Telegram. I think the debate is definitely warranted when it comes to freedom of speech, but mostly user privacy. But that being said, Telegram did call these accusations absurd, saying that they have nothing to hide, and they emphasize that it does comply with EU regulations, namely the Digital Services Act. But as we mentioned, Ton and Telegram have a very close kind of relationship. And so any associated news or regulatory crackdown on Telegram could raise concerns over what could happen to Ton. Again, I want to note that they are separate entities, but as we mentioned before, Ton leverages the Telegram user base for adoption, and any kind of potential changes to Telegram's privacy policies or other kind of changes in their infrastructure, for instance, could hamper adoption of the Telegram platform itself, and therefore of the total addressable market for Ton. On the back of this, Ton plummeted by approximately 25% following the news. But that being said, when you look at the kind of open interest at the moment on the TON token, it's mostly on the positive side, indicating that people are betting that this is a short and sharp drawdown, similar to what happened for the BNB token when CZ was detained. And we're actually starting to see that the token has picked up about, I think, 7% since the local low of 5.10. But if that wasn't enough, yesterday TON suffered a 6-hour outage due to abnormal congestion. But the positive here is that this was just due to a spike in network activity from a TON-based meme coin, Dogs, that was deployed 2 days ago on Monday. And it actually led to 4 million users going to try to claim this meme coin. And led to the network processing up to 67,000 transactions per second, and which is the highest it's ever experienced. While the outage is bad, at least I guess we know it can handle a lot of transactions at a time. So yeah, this is where we're at right now. At the same time, this is a developing story, so we'll make sure to monitor any events and update in due course.
Let's also remind people that Solana experienced a lot of outages. Solana is now performing much better because at the end of the day, these kind of intense and extreme events, they are necessary to battle test the network and to figure out what the weak points are and to start rectifying them. Whenever we have new smart contract platforms coming to the market, most of them advertise extremely impressive theoretical capabilities, but you never really get to know what they're realistically able to achieve unless they go through moments such as these. So at the end of the day, you really have to look at this in a positive manner because it does show what the network is capable of. And as Max just said, we now have a much better idea.
I think what's the key takeaway here in terms of the outages, with the information that we have as of now, this is a separate event. It has nothing to do with the arrest of this Telegram CEO. It just seems like very bad timing. But yeah, I think that's important to note. And also what you highlighted, obviously the two companies, different entities, they work very closely, but they are different entities. And that's why investors should be aware when reading the news.
Even though they're not directly connected to what happened, the meme coin that just launched, the logo of the token itself, it's inspired by a mascot, which is inspired by the arrest of the founder. So it really just turned into a culturally phenomenal event. And the meme coin itself, it had more than 18 million subscribers over the last month and a half. And we just saw a really huge uptick yesterday again because of the news that happened. It's not directly impacted by the arrest itself, but it's just, yeah, as Adrian has just said, it's the timing of it that was spectacular. That's to say the least. But
yeah, meme coins in general, they're usually just a reflection of the sentiment in the market. So obviously this is a discussion way more holistic. This is a discussion about privacy. And therefore, obviously, the meme coin that has been launched basically is just a reflection of that. Maybe it's time to look into the TON network itself a little bit. Obviously, as we mentioned, over 150% plus year to date, but also fundamentally and on-chain, a lot has been moving. So what's going on here?
So I just want to take a step back and to look at the performance over the year, because it really has been a historic year for TON. And as Adrian mentioned, up 138% year to date. The TVL has grown from a mere 13.5 to almost $800 million. And so it's just a mere reflection of the growth of the TON ecosystem itself. TON's DeFi ecosystem is booming. TON Stakers has the highest rate of liquid staking tokens across all chains. And another factor pointing to this substantial DeFi ecosystem is the fact that it took Solana 4 years to reach the level of USDT supply that it took TON in 4 months, which just shows the sheer adoption and is likely very linked to the story Kareem mentioned over in the Philippines. Currently, the TON stablecoin market cap is at 620 million, and it's really set to, USDT is really set to unlock tons DeFi potential. Just a few weeks ago, we had them process the highest volume ever at $1.2 billion. I think even aside from the DeFi developments that we're seeing on Ton, they're really putting in work to grow their ecosystem also outside of the hood of Telegram and not just funnel users from that existing user base. For instance, they were just granted a spot on Binance Launch Pool, which should raise its token fundraising and distribution efforts. Recently announced a partnership with Pith Network to deliver pricing data to Ton builders, which could expand that space even more. And then lastly, Ton Ventures, a $40 million early stage venture fund supporting early stage projects on the Ton network, which could really is set to fuel the next wave of projects that are building on this smart contract platform. So I just think this really highlights that the ecosystem is growing, and it's not just thanks to Telegram itself.
Just in terms of USDT, I think something else that is really quite important to understand is that Ton has integrated USDT on Ton with more than 100 service providers. That includes tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 centralized exchanges. It includes payments providers, includes so many different service providers within the industry, really. And that is something that we really haven't seen happen in such a short period of time. Like the only other comparable example would be USDT on Tron, the Tron blockchain. That's another blockchain that is really just mainly used for remittance and for cross-border payments in Africa and in Latin America. We really haven't seen the same level of adoption. So I think that is speaking volume of the fact that Ton is aware of how much USDT is, like stable coins utilization is very much useful. And the fact that they were able to achieve this in less than 3 months, because USDT launched on Ton at the end of April. So the fact that they were able to do this, and again, in less than 4 months, it's impressive, but it also speaks volume of the growing utility and need for this kind of payment. Cool. So as Max was just saying, DeFi obviously is usually the case with other global app stores. DeFi is the first thing to usually take off just because it's repeating the same playbook that we've seen on Ethereum. But again, because of the close relationship that they've had with Telegram, we now saw the growth of a completely new subsector, if you may. So if you guys are old enough to remember how we used to have penguin games on Facebook, the kind of games that were very entertaining to play, but they did not require any kind of sophisticated graphics. They were not the GTAs or the Call of Duty of the modern age, but they were just easy to play, and they were able to always connect you with other players. That's really what we saw on Ton here. For instance, we saw games. There's a new sector called Tap to Earn. So Tap to Earn is really just a very simple game that you mindlessly keep pushing on the screen in order to earn some points, which should in the future convert to crypto tokens. Of course, this is not a groundbreaking game. It's not like onboarding some of the most advanced game publishers within the crypto ecosystem, but it is a way to adapt and to appeal to a much broader section of the audience that are not just interested in using crypto for the financial aspect of it. A lot of people who use Telegram can just be playing games on their phone. And that's exactly what we saw here. Again, some of the most explosive segments have been play to earn. There was also this game called Catizen, which was like nurturing your own cat in an ecosystem kind of a game. Again, they're really cool things that doesn't require a lot of sophistication, but most importantly is that they allowed on onboarding a Web3 game, but without the user needing to know anything about the infrastructure or the complexity of crypto. And as we've highlighted here already in the presentation and multiple times before, that is the thing that will take crypto from step 1 to step 2. That you're not aware that this is happening in the background, but you are surely leveraging the benefits and the areas of strength of the technology.
And it's a massive market as well, and people have to be aware of that. We've always been in the research team a bit skeptical when it comes to blockchain gaming, especially talking about AAA video games. However, mobile games is a subsector that could make sense. And I think Ton is doing a fantastic job here. Just looking at the mobile gaming industry, I think it's over 100 billion in market size, and it's projected to be over 400 billion by the year 2030. So it's a significant market that this network is trying to tap into. And again, as Karim highlighted, it's a perfect way to onboard users, make them use crypto, make them use blockchain technology without actually noticing.
And I would like to just say, just because the usage and the gaming type is less sophisticated or less serious, doesn't take away from the adoption that these games can bring. You mentioned in the traditional sense, the mobile gaming industry, it's huge. It accounts for 70% of the total gaming industry. So it's not to be understated. Just because it's a little bit, it's more enjoyable, fun, and it's a topic that is not as serious as heavy finance, that doesn't mean that it doesn't warrant a conversation, because we really could see a huge adoption thanks to these mini apps.
I think just the one last point before we go into this next slide. The key observation that we've seen with this trend is the fact that we are now seeing the true potential of games that integrate with off-chain components. So what do I mean by this? Having a game fully live on-chain is not sustainable, because at the end of the day, for each and every transaction that you have, that's quite costly. However, if you start to implement some of the components and the core logic of the game, that means that the game doesn't really feel Web3-ish anymore. It feels more like a traditional game with just some certain components that live on the blockchain. And the fact that we have seen this being implemented in a wide scale, or like a massive scale, it was really wonderful to see, because we noticed that there are more than, just in the last month, from I think from early July until mid-August, there were more than 60 million users who interacted with this wide suite of games. And this is much larger than even probably DeFi has endured within the traditional crypto industry. Again, this is really wonderful to see, and it speaks volume about how it could inspire other networks and other applications to adopt such a mechanism.
Yeah, here we just have some numbers, some stats. Some of the games that Karim already mentioned, like 𝕋𝕚𝕶, the Tamagotchi cat game, again, 15 million users, which is a significant number. Another example is 𝕂𝕂, a tap to earn game, which had over 35 million users. So yeah, we just want to highlight again, those mini apps, those mini games, they are able to attract a large amount of users. Now, maybe let's just to round it up, we now understand what the Ton ecosystem, what the Ton network is. We kind of unwrapped some of the stories and recent news that are happening. We see the flourishing ecosystem of the Ton network and its value proposition. How are we going forward? What's like the market outlook, taking into account what's happening with Telegram? Should investors be concerned? What are some of the bull, neutral, and bear case scenarios that could take place over the next couple of months?
Absolutely. So in the best case scenario, Telegram and the executive team behind Telegram, they would not be held liable for the kind of abuses that happen on the platform. I don't think this is a very unlikely scenario, because we have seen this happen with a lot of other social media platforms. We've seen this happen with Facebook. We've seen this happen with WhatsApp. We've seen this happen in a lot of previous instances. So I don't think this is far-fetched to think. And instead, we could just see a potential scenario where the privacy policy of the platform would just have to be slightly altered in order to make sure that some of the violations that exist there, again, as much as they exist in all other platforms, don't happen as easily. If that is the case, then Telegram would come out as a winner, because at the end of the day, it will be a big win for free speech in one angle, and privacy on the other angle. And we would absolutely expect the growth of Ton as an ecosystem and as a settlement network to really thrive from that point forward. Of course, this will only be understood further and further as more details come out from the current investigation. However, we expect this transpire over the next 2 to 4 weeks. So we will be monitoring this closely. The neutral scenario, that the investigation could take longer than that, which would mean that there is a lot of that it could generate a lot more uncertainty around Telegram, and then people just feeling a bit hesitant about what this could mean for Ton. As we've highlighted, they are not dependent on each other, but just because of the close associations and the deep integration they have with each other, it could persuade people to feel that maybe it would be better to be sidelined just until we have more clarity about how the whole situation unfolds. So this could happen. But again, as we have said, even if this uncertainty does take place, the setbacks that Telegram could endure, it will not be the end of it. Much like a lot of people left Instagram and Facebook before, like the migration and the exodus of users could always be replaced by new users because we're in the social media era. So it's, and especially again, because of the network effects of having more than 900 million users means that you have close to 15% of the world's population. That is not something that you can just easily move on from as long as you want to get connectivity and access to the global population. The worst case scenario, that the Telegram team / founders, they would be charged with abetting criminal offenses. What could that lead to? We would think that it would lead to forcing extremely strict moderation measures and KYC, even though it's important to remind people that KYC does actually exist, at least when you're creating a crypto wallet at the moment. This was not the case a year ago, or at least when the wallet launched, but they do have it now. However, it could include that this is the default or the de facto setting for anyone interacting with Telegram. This could potentially also mean that they would need to just completely deassociate with any crypto initiatives. The other thing that we are not really sure about is how much Telegram contributes to the Ton infrastructure. So as we've just said, Telegram directly uses the blockchain for things like sharing ad revenue, like channel owners could be earning a portion of their revenue in Ton, which is settled on the Ton blockchain itself. So if we do find out that Telegram was investing heavily, or not investing, was contributing heavily in terms of the infrastructure, in other words, running a couple of validators on the network, then if this worst case scenario does happen, then we could potentially see the security of Ton taking a hit in the short term and then rebounding after that. One potential workaround for this kind of situation is that Ton would start expanding beyond Telegram. It's not really clear what other application would have the same, again, kind of network effects and user base, but it could be a way to decentralize their reliance and their dependency on one specific platform.
That's a good point. Just diversify away just to be dependent. It's curse and blessing, obviously. It is the strongest value proposition of Ton that they can tap easily into 900 million users. But as you pointed out perfectly, is the outcome will decide if the users actually going to leave or stay with Telegram. And that kind of has an impact on a total addressable market for the Ton network. What are the key takeaways? What's the TLDR? What are some of the points investors should be aware of? And what are some of the open questions that still remain? Because Max said it's an unfolding story. There might more things coming out over the next couple of days or weeks. So yeah, what's the conclusion here?
Again, the team behind Telegram and the foundation and the Ton Foundation, they work closely together, but they're completely independent of each other. One is based in Zug in Switzerland, the other is based in Dubai. So they don't have any actual existing, like they're not sharing offices. They don't have any kind of a relationship as such. So that's the first important thing to be aware of. The second thing is, again, despite the fact that USDT and DeFi grew exponentially within the last few months, it's the fact that they are tapping into this trend of onboarding Web3 games, all within the familiar interface of Telegram that everyone is used to. They're able to advertise and promote Web3 games and Web3 applications, all without needing to rely on a bunch of third-party services and applications. The third one, and that's the resulting impact of the investigation, if they do change their privacy policy, we could potentially see an exodus or a migration of users. However, again, as we've seen with with multiple previous social media platforms, it's a cycle. People who will leave the platform who are not very comfortable with the kind of privacy policies that they have will most likely be replaced with others. It won't be the end of the world, even if it does feel like a consequential impact in the short term. The things that we still need to find out and figure and understand on a deeper level is, where is Ton's code base? So when we talk about Ton's code base, it means essentially the code itself that makes Ton what it is. Is it all located within a centralized jurisdiction? And are there any people from Telegram contributing directly to this? We don't think that's the case, but we don't want to jump into conclusions or speculate. But this is something that we really need to understand on a deeper level in order to understand if there is a lot of influence that would come from just specific parties. The other thing, as we've just highlighted, the security of Ton itself. As a reminder, Ton has about 360 validators. They are geographically distributed around 3 continents: Latin America, Europe, and the US. And they're spread around, I think, 36 countries, if I am remembering correctly. However, if we do find out that Telegram is running a couple of validators out of these, then it shouldn't be a problem. However, if they're running a substantial number, then the security of Ton could take a hit in the short term. However, again, we don't have any color or information on this, but it is something that we are looking into, just again to understand the kind of impact that the network would be exposed to. And finally, on the back of the fact that if Telegram is running validators contributing to the security of the network, if they do hold a lot of Ton, then this could potentially have an impact on the governance, how the network moves on, how the network grows. This is really not something that is quite public as of yet, but we are doing our investigative research right now to try to uncover any kind of connections or linkages that would show that the Telegram team might be holding a substantial amount of Ton.
Again, those are the key takeaways. Those are some of the open questions. Again, what's really important to note is, and I have to highlight that as well, obviously our 21 shares products, they work as they're intended to. There's nothing to be concerned about on that front. And in terms of the story itself, we'll keep you posted. We keep on digging deeper. We do our research. We provide you with the updates. But yeah, as of now, we hope we were able to provide a comprehensive and insightful session. And yeah, with that being said, obviously, I would open it up to questions.
I think maybe the story of Ton itself, a lot of people might have heard about Telegram, but maybe not a lot of people were aware of Ton and the kind of symbiotic relationship that they have. This could be all an entire news story that people were just not fully aware of. We do have a questions though. What is our opinion about dogs, if we have any perspective? I'm gonna kick this off. It's a meme, and I think it is a proxy really of the meme coin sector.
Explain what dogs is, first of all.
It's really as simple as a meme coin that was created, or it was advertised about 4 or 5 months ago. Max, you were talking quite a lot about it. Do you have any edgy insights about what the token is?
No, I don't. I'm not as familiar with dogs as I am with Resistance Dog, another meme coin on Ton. So unfortunately, I don't have any perspective on dogs itself. The only thing I have on it is my personal feeling, which made it the perfect storm a little stormier. And so I don't have a good feeling about dogs just based off of that, but I don't have a perspective on the token itself.
Yeah, it's been quite fascinating. I think the token itself, the meme coin, had over 2 billion in trading volume just on the first day, and it launched yesterday. So obviously the question is, it's just the community that comes together on back of the news and everything that's happening around Telegram and Ton. But yeah, likewise, I don't have much more information or even an investment case on the meme coin dogs.
I think one thing that we can, I guess, infer is the fact that it was built off of the back of Pavel's arrest. And like Resistance Dog, the other meme coin, it leans into the fact that Ton users and crypto users generally appreciate a feeling of privacy. And so I think it could be used as a proxy for how the ton ecosystem feels about this situation that's doing. So that's the one I could add there. For instance, Resistance Dog, really the meme coin that kind of champions the online fight and resistance against censorship, etc. They recently, when on the back of the Pavel arrest, the token skyrocketed by 70% or so, which just shows how that section of the ecosystem and of the user base feel about this situation.
What is the tokenomics of TON? Is the supply limited or not? And how does the inflation of the coin works? So TON used to be just for context, TON used to be a proof of work token. That's when it first launched, and it was being led by the team behind Telegram, because there's no Telegram Foundation. However, they've since changed into a proof of stake token after the whole SEC debacle, and they've changed their tokenomics structure in the process. So at the moment, the total maximum supply is 5 billion, and the annual inflation of the token itself is 0.6%, if I am remembering correctly. However, there's no maximum supply. That's the total supply that I just mentioned. The maximum supply is infinite, much like Ethereum is, much like a bunch of other proof of stake networks. That's the gist of it. Why does it not have a maximum supply? Because I know that a lot of people usually get the idea that fiat currencies, in certain cases, they don't have a cap on their supply. So why are crypto tokens following in the same path? I think the key issue here is, if you're going to use the native or the utility currency of a specific network, you don't want to run in the situation where there is a competition in order to earn the token, when the token itself is quite critical and useful to access the ecosystem. You don't want to create this kind of supply and demand imbalance. With Bitcoin, it was not intended to be used for the day-to-day payments and for an ecosystem, which is again evident by the fact that we don't have a DeFi ecosystem on Bitcoin right now, even though this is changing, of course, with all the innovations that we're seeing quite recently. So it will be interesting to see how this will play out. But yeah, that's effectively the rationale for why you don't have a maximum cap on the amount of tokens that a lot of proof of stake networks have. I hope this was helpful, and please let me know if you have a follow-up to this.
All right, I think that's it. We're at time as well. So thank you very much for all the support, Max, Kareem. Also, thank you to all the listeners. We also have a quick survey. I think it's just 1 or 2 questions. So we would highly appreciate your feedback, especially constructive feedback. We love constructive feedback. We want to improve. We want to make those calls here more insightful, more useful for you guys. And so please let us know what you think. And other than that, I wish a happy rest of the day and see you the next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.